Hey y'all, I'm Tim. Welcome to today's Saturday Showcase. We've got a really good video. I know a lot of y'all have been requesting this in the comments below. If you've got other ideas for us on future requests, put them in the comment section below. We'll check it out.
Happy fall, y'all. It is officially fall. We're gonna be getting into some fall color videos very soon. We wanted to get one of our favorite fall plants on video for you right before fall, but we wanted to talk about it, and that's the Acer Japonicum. So today's Saturday Showcase, we're gonna be diving into Acer Japonicum Part 1. Now, if this is a popular video, we may keep doing these and talk about several of the interesting plants in this species.
Me and Matt, we love Acer Japonicum. Acer Japonicum is one of the most interesting species. I mean, we fell in love with this plant long before we ever went to Japan. We planted lots and lots of Japonicum selections, and we love them here at our nursery. One of our goals was to try to get every Acer Japonicum selection we can actually get because they're so interesting to us. If you like Acer Japonicums, like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and make sure you sign up for our weekly emails so you'll know when these Japonicums are becoming available on our website.
So first up, we're going to start out with one that is a very unique Acer Japonicum. Now this was actually a wild collected seedling. It's Acer Japonicum wild collected from the Shirabisu Pass there in Japan. Now Tim and I, we were actually on a Japanese TV show. You probably heard us talk about it here on the show before because we love to talk about it. But we actually went and did a little bit of wild collecting ourselves and went and looked at Acer Japonicums growing natively there in the wilderness there in Japan.
Now we went into Nikko National Park and saw Japonicums growing in the wild, saw them growing near that waterfall at Ryuzu Falls, and it was fantastic.
Oh wow, perfect fall color too. We actually went twice. We went 3 times, but the first time we went twice on the same trip. The beginning of the trip, they hadn't quite gotten to fall color. By the end of the trip, we were getting into some of that amazing, oranges, reds, and yellows that the Acer Japonicums bring, and wow, it was a showstopper.
Now, what do I like about Acer Japonicums? Well, you get a thicker leaf, and on that thicker leaf, that typically gives it a longer, consistent fall color that can sometimes give you fall color a week to 2 weeks longer than your typical Acer palmatum. So Acer Japonicums, just on that alone, that's one distinguishing factor about the Acer Japonicums.
Yeah, now this specific one was wild collected by some of our friends. We didn't wild collect this one. It was collected there at the Shirabisu Pass. There are 1 and 2 seedlings from that selection, and it's not a cultivar, but we love to graft it here at MrMaple. It gives you a little bit of what we love about the wild Acer Japonicum. You get some of those more rounded traits. A lot of the wilder Acer Japonicums kind of look like Takenagawa. They have that very round, medium-sized leaf, not quite what you think of with some of the vidifoliums and some of the largest leaves, although you will see those too in the wilderness. They're a very nice, medium-sized round leaf typically.
And it's everything that we saw when we were in Japan. I mean, that's the thing that's so awesome about it. In Japan, the things that give fall colors out there on the mountaintops, you've got a lot of plants from Acer palmatum, Japonicum, Shirasawanum, and even some ginkgos that have been dropped around from the temples. And Acer Japonicums always stand out. They're always one of the things that give some of the most intense fall colors, and they make you want to go to that mountaintop and see that plant. And that's one of the things I love about Acer Japonicum.
Yeah, a lot of times when you see those mountain views of Japan, some of the most amazing fall colors are from those Acer Japonicums. Now moving along from one of the most basic but also very interesting, a wild collected Acer Japonicum, we're going to talk about one of our most popular Acer Japonicums, and that is Maykujaku.
Now Maykujaku has been known under many different names, from aconitifolium to at one point it's felicifolium.
I've seen it sold as fernleaf, which is the worst name possible.
But the thing about Maykujaku, which is known as the dancing peacock, is its leaf shape. And the really unique thing about its leaf shape is the leaf itself looks a lot like an Acer, or it looks like a dancing peacock. It looks like a peacock displaying its feathers.
Especially as it gets into those fall colors. I mean, it's a green that's going to give you a prominent, dissected, a little bit more interlobing. So the lobes are actually very elongated on aconitifolium or Maykujaku. And we do believe those two to be the same cultivar. You'll see a lot of times it's sold as aconitifolium. Oftentimes a Japanese maple came from Japan and it went to Europe and it received a Latin name, but it also came to America from Japan, and oftentimes during that it would keep its original Japanese name. And that's why we do go with Maykujaku. We feel that it does predate the aconitifolium, but same plant. So if you see those two in the trade, don't fret, they're not different plants. They're very, very similar. We believe them to be identical.
The other thing we've often seen is people put Meiku and then Jaku. Well, Meiku isn't, Mei, M-A-I, means dancing, and Kujaku means peacock. So it makes sense that the space is actually after the M-A-I. Now, this is a plant we planted tons of these around our gardens.
Oh man, I'm a huge fan of this plant.
It gives you everything you love about Acer Japonicum with a tropical-like leaf that is more lacy and ornamental. And because of that, it just flows on the wind, especially in the fall color. It's something that you can enjoy each and every season. Now, the other thing we haven't talked about Acer Japonicums is everything is often bigger in Acer Japonicums. And this is one that specifically has a lot of those bigger leaves and also has those bigger blooms. Most Japanese maples don't have a bloom that are especially showy. But on a lot of the Acer Japonicum selections, and the Dancing Peacock Maykujaku is one of them, they have a larger bloom on it in the early spring that is a red color and it hangs down sort of like tassels. And on Acer Japonicum Maykujaku, that is an extra ornamental appeal, even in the spring, is that red, larger flower hanging down off of those Japonicum leaves.
I have a really beautiful Maykujaku in my front yard, and one of my favorite things to tell my wife is, babe, you look better than a Maykujaku in fall color. That's how we compliment our women around here.
Love Maykujaku. I mean, it's one of those plants that just shows off each and every season.
It's not uncommon to get some really nice oranges in this one. Now, with any of the Japonicums, different seasons can control that fall color a little differently. Maykujaku is typically orange early, then red late. So you kind of get some really fun colors there. I've had red, orange, and yellow all at the same time, but I've had some really nice shades in the last few seasons of orange.
Really love Maykujaku, and it's one of those plants that is very beautiful. It's a classic that's out there in the nursery trade, but it's still probably underutilized because of how beautiful it is and its unique feel in the garden. So next up, we've got a newer introduction, Acer Japonicum Blushing Beauty.
Love this name. This was named by our friend Ed Shin. You probably know him as NJ Acer. Blushing perfectly describes what this one does. I love when a name kind of fits a tree, and I think blushing aptly describes the hues you get on this one. This is typically a green Japanese maple in the summer. In the spring, you're gonna get a blushing of red over top of that. The tree just has a blush. You still do see that green undertone there, but it has a blush of red over top of every leaf. Now, I found that some seasons it's a little less consistent, but you're gonna get this pretty good early morning sun, late day shade, and leafing out slowly is gonna give you your best color patterns on this one. I've had some seasons where it leaves out almost completely red, and it's just a stunning new addition to Acer Japonicum.
Now, Blushing Beauty was found as a chance seedling by Ed Shin, and he grew it in a container for a few years and really started to really enjoy that blushing color, and then it got its name, Blushing Beauty. At first, it was like, hey, we've got a red Japonicum with red spring color, and then the name so aptly fits this, like Matt says. A lot is about what's in a name on a Japanese maple, and this one really has a great name for what it does. That blushing color in the early spring.
Nice large foliage too.
Really large foliage. For a Japonicum, it's got a really large leaf and is one of the newer introductions that it's made it to the website, but it hasn't made it available yet on our website on MrMaple.
Now, you can always sign up to get notified when this one's in stock. Of course, we're going to be bringing this to you first on a 10 at 10 when this one releases on Mr. Maple. I like pairing this with a new town introduction. I actually have two of these planted beside each other in a garden I have, where I have a Blushing Beauty next to an orange fan. So that one kind of blushes orange, this one kind of blushes red, and you get some unique color contrast there for Acer Japonicum in a garden. Two of my favorites. If y'all love this series, maybe we'll keep talking about Acer Japonicums. We'll have orange fan on an upcoming one.
I wonder all the interesting seedlings that have came through Ed Shin's garden.
Right.
He's went through so many seedlings, and he hasn't really named many.
Yeah.
And this is one of the few.
When he does, they're pretty good.
I mean, he's got a collection of 400 plus, 500 plus Japanese maples.
Maybe we'll have to do a breakdown of the Ed Shin garden.
Yeah.
He's too modest to say that he's introduced a bunch, but I could think of at least 5 really cool plants we could talk about right now.
Oh, that's a pretty good idea.
Right. All right, so next up here on the table, we've talked about this one before. It's Acer Japonicum Gossamer.
Gossamer was a selection found by Billy Schwartz at the old Red Maple Nurseries garden. Now, Red Maple Nurseries, they had a tree that we've listed before as parent Gossamer. It had a name aconitifolium on it, but it wasn't the Maykujaku that we're familiar with today.
Very large leaf form, much closer to an extremely large leaf vitifolium, but even a little bit more cut leaf. Yeah,
more
so
like a Yamakagi almost.
That's why we've listed that one as parent Gossamer, because it doesn't really fit with our current lineup of what we consider Maykujaku or vitifolium. It may be a name lost to us in time, but parent Gossamer kind of best fits that one.
And Gossamer was found as a chance seedling that just has the most dissected leaves. Billy said that this may be a hybrid between a lace leaf Acer palmatum dissectum and Acer japonicum, the aconitifolium that's listed as aconitifolium at Red Maple Nurseries.
Really fun plant. One of the dwarfest of any of the Acer Japonicums. It's one of the smallest ones we do. We're kind of breaking this one down with some different color patterns for you. We started out with one of the ones that's the most basic, if you will, and then there's some different variances here. So we kind of wanted to just give you some examples. Gossamer being one of the smallest and also one of the most heavily divided of the Acer Japonicum family.
Extremely sought after, but this is a 2-year graft. And as you can see, it's very slow growing.
Actually, the same age as the rest of these on the table. So.
Yeah, and so it's a very slow-growing dwarf Acer Japonicum selection, almost like a fairy hair selection of a Japonicum.
Right, very, that's kind of like what I think of it as. It gets these little weird stringy growths. I have noticed with very old growth, you get a few leaves in there that are a little bit more green Cascade size, but the top growth on it still has that fairy hair-like growth to it.
Now, Sue Weigriff did some hybridizing work and believes that there is actually a natural barrier that prevents Acer Japonicum from hybridizing with Acer palmatum. And so while this may be a hybrid, or every rule is meant to be broken, that definitely happens too, it could just be an extremely lace leaf selection, the most finest lace leaf selection of an Acer Japonicum.
Right. Now, last up here on the table, but certainly not least, we have the most popular version of Acer Japonicum we do that is a lace leaf. This is Acer palmatum green Cascade, and it has that elongated lace leaf-like appearance to it for sure.
Many of y'all may know the name J.D. Vertrees. He wrote the book, the first and second, and part of the third edition of Japanese maples. And J.D. Vertrees made Japanese maples popular in America. Well, while he was writing this book, he also had his nursery that was providing Japanese maples, mail order, to a lot of people. And a lot of other nurseries, like Mountain Maples and other nurseries, were using him as their source and getting plants from them and then shipping to other people. Now, during that time, he had to hire another propagator, and his propagator was Art Wright. And Art Wright found Acer Japonicum green Cascade and introduced it into the nursery trade.
Excellent plant, low and spreading. It kind of gives you everything you like about it, a lace leaf Japanese maple mixed with Maykujaku. I think of it as like the lace leaf Maykujaku because you're going to get all those amazing fall colors you get on Maykujaku. I've seen this one be red, yellow, and orange all at the same time on that low cascading umbrella.
Japonicum green Cascade gives you that rounded lace leaf appearance, a little bit larger than your typical lace leaf, but it also gives those blooms that we talked about.
Right.
You can get some hanging tassel red blooms off of these branches that contrast really well with those green, lacy type leaves. I mean, it's a fantastic Japonicum selection because it's the very first weeping, spreading Acer Japonicum.
I'm a huge fan of this one. I love it for patio planters. I love it for in the ground. I like to put them on a little bit of a standard and then just kind of let them spread out from there and kind of have that umbrella-esque shape to them. Really a good plant to be growing in the landscape. There's some amazing specimens out there now, and it's one I can't do enough of. I think it's probably our most popular of the Acer Japonicums that have that more weeping form to them for sure.
I definitely think it is. It's amazing the diversity that we have here just in Acer Japonicum. From the wild collected, which is what you see out in the wild, what you typically think, to one that has a spring color.
Yeah.
To a Acer Japonicum that's upright with more divided leaves, to a lace leaf weeping form, to the smallest, most thread leaf Acer Japonicum.
Yeah, so we picked these just to give you some diversity here. If you like this video, let us know in the comment section below if you'd like to see a part 2 to Acer Japonicum. We've been doing these Saturday showcases, and we've been enjoying different ways to break these down for you. We talked about Yokohama Nursery and Japanese maples that we grow here from Australia. We're going to be talking about Del Laux and some different nurseries that we like to talk about their complete collection. But we wanted to break it down one day for you by species. So today we're starting out with Acer Japonicum. And guys, we do a lot of Acer Japonicums here at Mr. Maple. If this is something you love, let us know. I could see us doing a 5-part series on Acer Japonicum. There's a lot of interesting ones. We kind of like the cutting edge stuff, but we also love, the straight species from Japan. That stuff gets us equally fired up.
Acer Japonicum, what's your favorite thing about Acer Japonicum?
I would say the tropical look to it. I love the big foliage. I'm a big fan of how different it looks as a Japanese maple. I'd be crazy if I didn't say the fall color. So that's 2-part there. The fall color on the large leaf.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear as day what we see as Acer Japonicum today.
Right.
I think in the late 1970s to early 1980s, they separated Acer Japonicum and Acer Shirasawanum.
And that's why you see both referred to as full moon a lot of times. And both do have that moon-shaped leaf appearance. So a lot of times they can, the common name for both can be referred to as a full moon Japanese maple. Take your pick there. I'm a huge fan of Japonicums and Shirasawanums, but there's so much that Acer Japonicum brings, whether it be those large red tassel flowers. I think that's a really understated thing for a Japanese maple. When we think of Japanese maples, we don't really think of their flower. Well, one of the cool things about Acer Japonicum are that red tassel flower contrasts so starkly with the foliage, because Acer Japonicums are typically a lush green in the early spring. So you're going to notice those red tassel flowers on it. It looks like a flowering shrub or flowering plant there in the garden, even though it's an upright Japanese maple or a lace leaf Japanese maple.
Yeah, I think you're so right. And people often say, hey, why is this considered a full moon Japanese maple? If you look at the wild collected, or you look at the leaf on Blushing Beauty and you see this larger rounded leaf, you realize that looks a little bit like a moon, especially when you see this thing starting to light up in the fall with some yellows to oranges to reds, especially in that yellow to orange side, looks like a moon, at night. And that's because that's where it gets this name, the full moon, the common name, the full moon Japanese maple. Now you may see sometimes people list Acer Shirasawanum aureum as an Acer Japonicum aureum. Every Acer Shirasawanum that we've seen that's labeled aureum, that's labeled Japonicum aureum, is actually Shirasawanum aureum that we've ran across. And that's because of that division that happened on Acer Japonicum and Acer Shirasawanum. And Acer Japonicum has so many awesome traits. It's one of those plants that we can't get enough of. And there's so much diversity already in Acer Japonicum. But I think as the years go on, we're going to be able to select and find more more interesting traits in Acer Japonicum.
It's an underutilized category for Japanese maples. An interesting thing about the cedar, they typically take 2 seasons to come up. So it may be that people give up 1 year too early on some of those cool seedlings. We need them to try a little bit longer. So that's a tip when you're growing your Acer Japonicum seedlings, let them grow 2 seasons, because sometimes they don't come up that first year. And then when you find something cool in Acer Japonicum, send us some photos to Mr. Maple.
And the hardest thing during that 2-year stratification period for a plant to crack the seed and come out is that you have to fight mice off for 2 years.
2 seasons.
And so you've got to fight them not off only the first winter, but all spring and summer, and then the next winter after that to often get your Acer Japonicums to come out. And sometimes you can cheat a little by putting them during the freezer, then pulling them out, then putting them back in the freezer again to give them 2 stratifications. So that is a tip with Acer Japonicum. If you have any cool Acer Japonicums that you found, send some photos to our email on the website on MrMaple.com, because we definitely love to see them. We love Acer Japonicums, and I know everybody in the world loves Acer Japonicums. It's one of the reasons why people love Japanese maples is what Acer Japonicums can bring in the garden.
Hey, let us know in the comment section below if you'd like to see a part 2, maybe even a part 5 of this. It may be a series we continue. We greatly appreciate you tuning in here to the Mr. Maple Show. Guys, we're adding regularly scheduled content here on the Mr. Maple Show. So we bring content every single day. Every single day at 9 a.m. our videos air during the week. Now on Sunday evenings, our podcast airs at 8 p.m. on our website. You can also find that podcast on all major streaming networks. So definitely go download the Mr. Maple Show today on your favorite streaming platform. We love the support. Give us 5 stars on some of those platforms so we can get this podcast and show out here to you guys. As always, like, subscribe, share, all those good things as well. We really appreciate you tuning in.
Really hope you've enjoyed something we're extremely passionate about on these Acer Japonicums. Take care.
God bless.
And have a great day.